It is March 7th, 1945. The war in Europe is almost over. Almost. The German army is retreating, burning everything behind them. Every road, every supply depot, every bridge. But one bridge, one single bridge across the Rhine River. They couldn't destroy in time. And what happened next changed history forever. Welcome to the story of the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, Germany. For 60 years before the war, this bridge was an engineering marvel. Half a kilometer of iron and steel connecting two banks of the most important river in Europe. Now, it was the last open crossing into the heart of Nazi Germany. To understand why this matters, you need to understand the Rhine. For centuries, European armies considered it nearly impassable. A natural barrier wider than 10 city blocks with currents powerful enough to swallow entire boats. Hitler himself called it Germany's last wall. He ordered every bridge destroyed before Allied forces could cross. By March 1945, the Allies had already blown through France and Belgium. General Dwight D. Eisenhower needed a crossing point desperately. His armies were spread thin across hundreds of kilometers of riverbank. Without a bridge, they'd need weeks to build temporary crossings under enemy fire. Weeks the war-weary world didn't have. Enter Lieutenant Karl Timmermann, 23 years old, son of a German immigrant father and an American mother. He commanded the lead platoon of the 27th Armored Infantry Battalion. Timmermann was the kind of officer who ate last and slept last, the kind his men would follow anywhere. On the morning of March the 7th, Timmermann's unit crested a hill outside the town of Remagen, and there, through the morning fog, they saw it. The bridge was still standing. Every officer froze in disbelief. This was not supposed to be possible. On the other side of that bridge, German Captain Willy Braga had a problem. He'd been ordered to hold Remagen and then destroy the bridge the moment American troops were sighted. But his force was a disaster. 36 soldiers, a handful of Hitler Youth boys, some elderly Home Guard volunteers, and 600 kilograms of explosives wired beneath the bridge deck. Braga sent a desperate message up the chain of command. Americans approaching, request permission to detonate. The answer came back, hold, wait for confirmation. Bureaucracy in a losing war, the worst possible timing, and every minute they waited. Timmermann's tanks got closer. Timmermann radioed his commanding officer, Brigadier General William Hoger. "Sir, the bridge is still up. Orders?" Hoger paused for exactly 3 seconds. Then, "Take it." 2 words. 2 words that would end the war 6 weeks early. Timmermann assembled his men at the base of the approach ramp. He looked at them. Some were 18, 19 years old. Kids who'd been in high school 2 years ago. He said, "I'm going across. I'm not ordering anyone to follow me, but I'm going." Every single man stepped forward. At 3:05 p.m., they started across. The bridge was 325 meters long. German machine guns opened up from the stone towers. Bullets sparked off the iron girders. Men dove for cover behind the railway rails, crawling forward on their elbows. Timmermann walked upright. He refused to crouch. Then, at 3:15 p.m., the bridge shuddered. A massive explosion erupted from beneath the deck. Braga had finally gotten the order. The blast lifted 3 soldiers off their feet. When the smoke cleared, the bridge was still standing. The explosives had misfired. Only a portion of the charges went off. A result of sabotage by French POW labor workers who'd wired the detonators wrong. Some historians believe intentionally. The bridge held. Timmermann screamed, "Move! Move! Move!" And they ran. At 3:17 p.m., 12 minutes after they started, Lieutenant Timmermann's boots touched the eastern bank of the Rhine. He was the first Allied soldier to cross the Rhine since Napoleon's armies in 1806, 139 years. And a 23-year-old from Nebraska did it. Within hours, Eisenhower got the call. His reaction, recorded by his aide, he repeated "hot dog" 4 times and paced the room laughing. Within 24 hours, he had ordered every available division to the Remagen bridgehead. Armies that were meant to wait weeks crossed in days. Back in Berlin, Hitler was screaming. He relieved 4 German generals of command within 48 hours. One was executed by firing squad. Hitler ordered the V-2 rocket team to target the bridge. 11 V-2 ballistic missiles fired at a single bridge, the first time in history. The bridge was damaged, stressed. It had survived a demolition charge and was now taking artillery, bombing raids, and frogman attacks from German commandos in the river below. American engineers worked 24 hours a day to reinforce it. But everyone could see the Ludendorff was dying. German artillery was constant. On March 10th, a shell hit near the bridge and a cable snapped with a sound like a cannon shot. Engineers reported the bridge was twisting slightly, a sign of catastrophic structural failure to come. The commanding engineer told Hoger, "Sir, we don't have much time." Sergeant Alexander Drabik was the first enlisted man across. He ran the entire length without stopping, zigzagging like a madman. He later said, "I just figured if I kept moving, nothing could hit me, so I kept moving." He received the Medal of Honor. Private Joseph Delizio charged one of the stone bridge towers alone. Inside, a German machine gun crew, 2 snipers, and a room full of explosives controls. Delizio kicked the door open, fired twice, and the entire garrison surrendered. All 10 of them, to one man. At 3 p.m. on March 17, 1945, exactly 10 days after it was captured, the Ludendorff Bridge collapsed. The structural damage had finally taken their toll. It fell into the Rhine in under 60 seconds. 28 American engineers were on the bridge when it collapsed. All 28 died. Their names, Pinchuk, Sabia, Stein, Dworski, Carlton, and 23 others whose families got telegrams that week. They didn't cross the bridge. They held it together with their bare hands so others could. But the damage was already done, to Germany. In the 10 days between capture and collapse, 25,000 American troops had crossed. The bridgehead was 8 kilometers deep into Germany. The Wehrmacht's defensive line on the Rhine, their last real strategic hope, was broken. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, Germany's most senior commander, later told Allied interrogators, "The Remagen bridgehead was decisive. After that, the war was simply a matter of time and geography." Even the enemy knew it. Lieutenant Karl Timmermann received the Distinguished Service Cross. He went home to Nebraska after the war. He got married, had kids, worked quietly. He died in 1951, just 29 years old, from cancer doctors linked to chemical exposure during the war. He never knew the full history he'd made. Historians estimate Remagen shortened World War II in Europe by at least 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks meant hundreds of thousands of lives, Allied, German, and civilian, who never had to die. One bridge, 9 days, a different world. The town of Remagen itself was almost entirely destroyed during the battle. The Ludendorff Bridge was never rebuilt. Today, only its 2 stone towers remain, standing on opposite banks of the Rhine. One now houses a peace museum. Of the men who crossed that bridge on March 7, 1945, most came home and never talked about it. They went back to farms, factories, and high school teaching jobs. The greatest generation didn't call themselves heroes. They called it just what needed doing. The next time someone tells you that one person can't change history, remember a 23-year-old kid from Nebraska who stood at the base of a damaged, mined machine gun-defended bridge over the most strategic river in Europe and said, "I'm going," and went. The seizure of the Remagen Bridge was one of the most momentous events of the war. General Dwight D. Eisenhower,